Hello, hello. Welcome back to the James Kennedy podcast. How are you doing? You missed me? I know I've taken a few weeks off yet again, haven't I? I don't plan these things. They just happen when life gets in the way. So I hope you don't mind, but I am back with another awesome episode, and there will be many more awesome episodes forthcoming. So what's my excuse? Where have I been? What have I been up to? Well, busy as always. You can rest assured that if I'm not doing a podcast, it's not because I'm sitting on my ass smoking a joint somewhere. It's because I'm busy as all hell doing 15 other things. And all of those things will be things that I will share eventually with you gorgeous people. Such as writing the new book. Such as writing new material and finishing the acoustic EP, which will be coming out really, really soon. And such as rehearsing with the mighty James Kennedy and the Underdogs Band, getting gig ready to come and wrestle some eardrums and make some hot, sweaty noise on a hot, sticky stage somewhere near you sometime really soon. So lots of goodies forthcoming. Also, as some of you may know, I've also got PTSD at the moment, which is making my productivity a little bit fragmented because I'm functioning at about 50% at the moment on a good day. Which for someone like me sucks because I'm used to just smashing it on all ends at 24/7 and I'll sleep when I'm dead sort of thing. But for the first time ever, I now have to factor in self-care into my daily schedule as it's a significant part of the recovery process for retraining my nervous system so that I can start sleeping properly again. I have to take frequent time out from my busy schedule to do things like meditate and yoga and go outside and get fresh air and things like that. So I hope you don't mind that my productivity is down and I haven't been posting on social media and I haven't been releasing a new album every 3 months. I hope you don't mind. I hope you understand that it's just because I have to put my own personal physical and mental health first for the first time in a long time. But I will be back destroying myself in good form really shortly, I hope. And giving you guys a constant stream of fresh content to feast your eyes and ears on. And that kind of ties into the subject that I'm going to be talking about with today's guest. Because as you know, I like to give you guys the honest behind the scenes insight into the true nature of what most musicians' daily lives are actually like. I mean, it's cool as entertainers to entertain and create the smoke and mirrors and give everybody some escapism, but at the same time there are some serious issues within our community of musicians and artists that I think are very important for the audience to be a part of, to be looped into and be part of that conversation, because we are a community that also includes our audience. Gone are the days of the gatekeepers and good riddance to them, because today, an artist can have a career with a direct relationship with their fans and their audience. So, I think openness and honesty is good for everybody. It deepens the understanding, and it deepens the relationship, and it deepens the connection. And I also think it's healthy for people to talk about these things because, a lot of people are struggling with different things. And I think, the old days when it was a stigma to talk about these things or it was taboo, I don't think that helped. I think it's really helpful and healthy for people to have these kind of conversations and talk about when they're struggling because then it can help somebody else out. They can learn from their experiences or it's just good to know that you're not alone, I think, I've talked very openly and honestly about my struggles with mental health and substance abuse and, just trashing myself basically and, financial instability and emotional instability many, many times, in my book Noise Damage and on the podcast and in interviews and stuff. I've never really been shy to talk about those things for the aforementioned reasons that I think it's good for the conversation as a whole to do that. My current situation with PTSD, as some of you will know, is not related to those things. I'm in a different place in my life now than I was when I wrote the book. My PTSD situation is not related to the music industry. It's an outside thing, which I'll be able to talk more about when the case has concluded. And I'm hoping to be able to share some of the things that I've been learning through trial and error that's helped me manage and come out the other side. Hopefully when that happens of that situation, I'll be able to share all that stuff as well, maybe do an episode on that. But today we are keeping it specific to the music industry and the issues within our community, of which there are many. And I'll be talking to the awesome Sarah Woods from the charity Help Musicians. Now, if you haven't already heard of these guys, they are absolutely amazing, and I encourage every musician listening to this to immediately go and check out their website at helpmusicians.org.uk, whereby you will find a ton of resources and links for where you can get help for your mental health or, financial assistance or just tips and advice on how to navigate this new terrain that we're in with the music business. Absolutely indispensable stuff. In an era when more and more musicians are becoming independent and managing their own careers, I think to have an ally like this is absolutely indispensable. And I really wish I'd known about them back in the day when I was doing my thing and struggling and getting screwed over every left, right, and center. The charity did exist at that point, but I didn't come across them, which is a real shame because then I would have not fallen into all of the holes that I did. But then again, I wouldn't have got a #1 best-selling book out of the story. So, every cloud. But these guys really are doing incredible work, and I'm super excited to find out more about exactly what they do and to share that info with the musicians listening, and also to give an insight to the music fans listening as to some of the issues that your favorite bands might be experiencing behind the curtain. But before we jump in, have you subscribed to the podcast? If you haven't, please do so. This is a free podcast. I don't make any advertising money or take donations or anything like that. All I ask is that you just help a brother out by clicking subscribe, click the rating button, share it, spread the word, tell people to check it out. There's a ton of great information on this podcast about all sorts of things, including the music industry, politics, society, mental health, physical health, all sorts of things. So get involved, check it out. All I'm asking you to do is to give me a subscribe and help kick that algorithm up the ass. Right, now let's get on with it. Joining me today is Sarah Woods from the absolutely brilliant charity and indispensable ally to musicians everywhere, Help Musicians. These guys do incredible work, but I'm going to let Sarah tell you more about that so that she can wallow in the very much deserved kudos of all the wonderful things that they do for the community that I have been a part of for my entire life. So Sarah, thanks so much for joining us today. How are you doing?
I'm good. And James, thank you for your very generous introduction to the charity.
No, not at all. As I said, I'm a big fan of what you guys do, so thank you so much for doing it. We have done a few things in the past. I think you guys may have published a few articles I've written on mental health and stuff in the past in the music business, so thank you for that. But I'm looking forward to finding out more today and sharing that with the listeners. So for those people who don't know anything at all about Help Musicians, can you give us the down low on who you are and some of the things that you guys do?
Sure. So Help Musicians is an independent charity for professional musicians across the UK. We also run a mental health charity called Music Minds Matter, and that is available for everyone within the music industry. So we offer a very broad range of support, focusing on health and wellbeing, mental health, but also career development. So we offer funding for times of crisis, particularly financial crisis. We offer grants in terms of career development and business skills. We run a series of helplines, so whether that's the mental health helpline, we run a bullying and harassment helpline, and we introduced a new helpline last year to support musicians with inquiries around touring, since that's become more challenging following Brexit. So I'm sure, hopefully, if you visit Help Musicians' website, there's something relevant for every musician at every stage of their career.
Absolutely amazing, man. And it's interesting. If you step outside of it and look at it objectively, it's kind of interesting how an entire industry of people needs a charity to help it with those issues. I mean, before we get into why that is, what are some of the main issues that affect this particular community? Because you don't see any charities that represent mental health interests of, factory workers or something like that. So it's very interesting that this community has the need for this. So what are some of the main issues that affect the musical industry?
So we've been going for 100 years. So, we say musicians' life is precarious, with ups and downs throughout a career. And I think it is, majority of musicians in the UK are freelancers. And developing a sustainable career as a musician can be tough. So the kind of issues that we're trying to design support around are, times of financial crisis, recognising that particularly after the pandemic, musicians have taken on quite a lot of debt, but also that kind of unpredictability and volatility of sustaining that income can take its toll, and that can take its toll in terms of mentally, but also in terms of physically. So if you're a musician with a career injury, we will support you with whether that's funding or medical support to recover and get back to work. So I think it's just, a precarious career and one which has many unique challenges, I think, which from time to time, unfortunately, mean musicians either need a helping hand or actually some sort of career support to get their career back on track.
100%. Yeah, and I can totally relate to a lot of the things you described there, unfortunately. And you mentioned that the charity has been around for 100 years. So I'd be really fascinated to ask. I don't know if this is possible to answer or if there's any data that supports this either way. But we know that the music industry has changed, significantly and permanently in the past 20 to 30 years. But do we have data on what the mental health and the financial stability and security of the artistic community was like before that seismic shift, before the internet, back in the bad old days of gatekeepers and major labels and record deals and things like that? Because my theory is that it's possibly worse now that we don't have any set structure or any safety net of any kind, really. And that we're all kind of out there on our own, competing not just with, the 5 bands in our hometown, but now every band on the planet for, space on the internet or whatever. So my gut feeling would be that it's possibly worse now in that regard. Better in many ways in that it's more democratized and we all have more opportunities and more control and more freedom. But the toll that takes on us emotionally and financially and in terms of our feelings of security, I imagine that those things are worse. But I might be wrong. Do we have any insight or data on that either way?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question. And before we had our centenary in 2021, and one of the projects around our centenary was to try and delve into the charity's archive to look at what those issues have been over, the 100 years. And we have a wealth of, in the olden days, the way the charity used to record its support for musicians were through the development of these little case cards, which were little typed up summaries of the needs of the musician and the support that was given. And having looked through those, that precarity of career is throughout, actually. So whether that be the 30s or the 50s, mental health is a theme. Musicians who have either mental health or addiction issues is also sadly a theme. But that debt, that sense of debt, again, is always there, I think, and that unsustainable income, which unfortunately from time to time musicians, need some additional financial support with just to get themselves into a position where they can start to grow their career again. So I can't say I think that terminology has changed around it. So in the sort of 30s and 40s, they call, there's language around nervous disorders and those kind of things. Right. But I think it's been consistent, sadly.
That is, both disheartening to hear and also fascinating as well to know that despite the shifts that we've had in the industry since, you mentioned the 30s, that this has been quite a consistent theme in our industry. That doesn't bode well, I don't think.
Yeah.
And I suppose there could be an argument to be made for the fact that oftentimes, substance abuse and, things like depression and mental health problems often do come with both the blessing and the curse of, having that creative gift within you, It does seem to be a common theme, but I think it's exacerbated by the way that this industry is set up in such a bizarre way that's very unique.
Yeah.
And as I said, my gut instinct would be that it is worse now because there is literally no structure or support system or gatekeepers of any kind at all now. We're just out there on our own. And obviously, social media has a massive impact on everybody's mental health across the board. But I think, when you're a creative freelancer, as most of us are now in this community, you're constantly measuring yourself in comparison to what you think other people are doing on social media, which is, for the most part is bullshit across the board because we all project a version of ourselves which is way more glamorous and successful than is the reality behind the scenes, But the fact that that's not the case and that this has been fairly consistent as far back as records can show is both fascinating and depressing.
Yes.
But I suppose on the flip side to that, there could be an argument for the fact that it's actually better now in the sense that we have these conversations now, whereas back in the day, it was so much more taboo, especially for men, to talk about, mental health struggles and financial instability and insecurity and things like that. So the data might not have been as honest back then or as truly representative of the actual situation, whereas now, thankfully, we're a lot more enlightened and a lot more open about speaking about these things and doing something about it. So I suppose, it's possible that it may have actually been worse before. Do you think?
And maybe people didn't reach out for help or feel they could reach out for help.
Right.
I think, just to your question in terms of has it got worse recently? So our Music Minds Matter charity, over the last 2 years, we have seen a significant increase in calls to that. So that's up 200% actually.
Wow.
Requests for therapy are up 35%. Whether that is a backlash from the pandemic. So, we know that from some of our surveys that we've done from musicians that they're feeling less hopeful about sustaining a career in music. And whether obviously that trying to get out yourself out of position of debt into an earning position again. We know that musicians tend to supplement, a lot of them tend to supplement their musical income with other forms of work. I was reading the other day a report from UK Music that said they estimate that up to a third of freelancers left the industry during the pandemic. If that's true, that's really going to kind of, play out in a bad way in future years. So we will see, I think, over the next couple of years. We are seeing an increase in support for our business skills development, our touring and live funding, which suggests to me that we've got musicians who are still struggling to get out of the tail of the pandemic, and there are others who are now trying to move forward their careers and take advantage of the opportunities in front of them, but need some financial support to do that.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? It's almost as if the aftermath effects of the pandemic are stronger now than they were immediately afterwards. There was a sense of optimism I felt when we came out of the pandemic and the lockdowns, and everyone was like, right, we can play again, and every man and his dog was on tour and stuff. But the ripple effect of that, I think, is really taking root now, bizarrely enough, 2 years after it. And it is heartbreaking to see some of the best musicians and creators and artists I know, smashing their hands up on building sites. I've mentioned that before. But we all just got in so much debt because, essentially our livelihood was just frozen, for an unknown amount of time. And I think it's interesting that what that tells me is that this industry is structured in such a way that it's not able to absorb any kind of shocks like that. I mean, I know it was a very particular time and a very specific set of, unprecedented circumstances, but I think it takes extreme and extraordinary times to really highlight and expose the true nature of something. Yeah. And I think what it showed us is that we are just not prepared for any disturbance to the normal way of doing things. And that's why all of these things that you've mentioned, the mental health, the financial insecurity, the pessimism, the lack of hope, the taking, day jobs to supplement our incomes and things, and the debt, that's why we have all these things. And it's just insane that the main foot soldiers of the industry, the creators, the artists, the people that write the songs and play the songs, the main cogs of this entire industry are just not being looked after in any way, shape at all by the structure of the industry. Yeah. So is it a structural thing? Is it something just to do with the way the industry has been traditionally developed? Or is it something else? Why is this so prevalent in this business in particular?
Well, I mean, I think the life of a freelancer in particular is significantly influenced by change. And over the last few years, we've seen COVID, we've seen Brexit. Yes. We've seen increased costs in terms of, your ability to make a profit. We've seen change in audience behavior. So I think at the moment there is definitely a kind of myriad of issues that are all kind of a perfect storm of creating, some major challenges. So I feel in particular that issues around mental health and career stability are more acute at the moment because of those changes which are influencing the predictability of being able to sustain a career. Right. Whether the industry itself, if you step back from that, is part of that. I don't know. I think, in every industry where you have complexity and lack of structures, even trying to get into this industry, one of the things that we're seeing is if you're a musician who's sort of at the early part of your career, what does a kind of sustainable career in music look like? It's hard to map out. So that visibility, connectivity we're seeing as a key issue for musicians, that, freelancers, it can be quite a lonely life often. And actually, when you're able to bring people together and say, actually, you know what, there are a number of you experiencing the same challenges. So what's one of the things Help Musicians has done more of over the last couple of years is bring musicians together in peer-to-peer support sessions to focus on mental health and well-being, to try and, a shared issue and some connectivity going forward, and mentoring hopefully might support in the right way.
That makes a lot of sense, yeah. And another thing, like I've noticed, is it seems to me from a personal experience, and just the conversations I've had with artists and performers over the years, all levels of the industry, that these issues that you've described, they're actually universal. And they don't necessarily go away with success, which is what I always imagined would happen, in my sordid career, was that once we get to the top of that mountain, it's all going to be a lot easier, and, we'll have support behind us, and, we'll have less burnout, and, it'll all be awesome.
Yeah.
And it seems to me, from the conversations I've had, some on the podcast and some, privately, that is not the case. It seems to be that these are universal themes, throughout the entire food chain of this industry from top to bottom. And this was brilliantly and brutally portrayed in the book that I've spoken about many a times on the podcast, the book Bodies by Ian Winwood, where just the sheer level of lack of care and concern for the artists, well-known artists on major labels, was just absolutely flabbergasting. But I do feel that this is slowly changing for the better as a result, of work by groups such as Help Musicians, and, the general opening up of the narrative around mental health and the value of art and the people that make it. I do see some signs of change in the right direction, and a general shift in values happening in the industry for the better. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I do agree with that. And the reason I say that, we ran our first mental health summit, which we invited lots of people across the music industry to last year, and a number of the major labels came and actually shared some of the things that they're doing now within their organizations to promote better mental health and well-being. So I do agree with what you've just said, that there is now, I think, more of an engagement in the issue, and a recognition that touring in particular, is emotionally and physically, taxing. There's someone called Tasman Embleton, actually, who's just written a great book on touring and mental health. So if you're interested in that, it's a really great resource for how to support musicians and some of the insights around those challenges. And I saw her tweet the other day that Live Nation had bought 3,000 copies of the book, which again is a really positive sign to show that those who can make a difference, particularly around touring, are engaging in how they might do so. So I think that's a really positive step.
100%, yeah. And I've always been quite critical of the, the mainstream industry machinery.
Yeah.
I've always been a big proponent of, the independent model, because that's the one that I've always operated within. And obviously, that wasn't available to us not so long ago, so it is kind of like this new democratization, this new empowerment that artists have got, whereby if you can't get a deal, or if you don't want to get a deal, you want to cut your own path, or you want to do things yourself, the tools and the opportunities are now available, which is amazing.
Yeah.
But what comes with that is all the burden and the pressure is on you to understand business, to understand marketing, to understand distribution, to manage your social media, and also, you are now in direct competition with the rest of the world. It's like, how do you get heard above the noise of everybody else doing that is a question that I've asked many times on this podcast to all sorts of people from different industries. And it is the question, isn't it? It's like we are all battling against the absolute monsoon of content that is saturating and inundating all of us 24/7. So it is a brave new world, and it's great to have the empowerment and the tools and the opportunities that we've got, but also there is a whole host of new pressures and new stresses that come with that.
I think that's a really good point. And, you see more and more independent musicians carving their own career, which is brilliant in terms of control and, mapping out your own path in a way that is right for you. But with that comes that responsibility of decision making, and you're trying to do different things. You're trying to promote yourself, you're trying to market yourself, you're trying to create, you're managing your own business. So there's a lot to juggle and I think that's partly why we see some of the challenges that we see, that juggling can take its toll, unfortunately. If it's not, if it's not something that people keep the right balance on. In particular, you talked about social media, you're building your brand, there's so much to juggle as an independent artist. So we at Help Musicians hopefully can support you with some elements of that at the right time. So do feel free to ring anybody in our musicians engagement team at any time and talk where you are in your career and what we might do to help you.
Yeah, it's absolutely indispensable because more and more artists these days are doing all of the things you just mentioned. And it's a 24-hour job.
Yeah.
And most of those things, we don't know what we're doing. And we can do the music stuff just fine. That's our natural habitat. But the social media, the marketing, the financial management, you're doing all of your own heavy lifting and everything as well, and driving and band management. And it's 24/7. And yeah, that combined with the pressure of the social media and, the comparison thing that I mentioned earlier as well, it's a lot. Yeah. So to have you guys as an ally is absolutely indispensable. So I hope that more musicians will reach out and check out the amazing resources on the site, because the website's brilliant as well as a lot of the the funding opportunities and information and mental health platforms and stuff that you've got there as well for help is absolutely an indispensable tool, particularly at this time now when more and more musicians are essentially sole traders, freelancers doing this by themselves. We need what you guys do.
It treats us like a friend.
Love it. And what a friend to have. So thank you, man. And the other friends that bands and artists have as well, of course, are their fans. One of the other beautiful benefits that we have now of this new model that I described earlier is, that direct relationship that artists can now have directly with their fans, which is another source of great, reciprocal support. So what are your thoughts on some ways that fans listening to this can directly support, the bands and artists that they love? Because I think more and more people are becoming more aware and more enlightened now as to the actual harsh realities that go on, behind the smoke and mirrors, behind the curtain, bands essentially living out of a van and showering in car parks and all that sort of stuff, and living on pot noodles, and making, negative money, if any. I think more and more people are becoming attuned to that reality now. And of course, people want to help, and everybody loves music. They want to help, particularly the bands and the artists that they love. So what can people do, in your opinion, to directly support and help the artists that they love?
So now is more important than ever to buy their music, buy the merchandise, go on social media and encourage them to continue going. And one piece of research Help Musicians did last year was around the value of music to the public. And it was so positive to see how much the public appreciate music. Almost half of the population cite music and their taste in music as being part of their DNA. And I know at the moment that people have to make difficult decisions around how they spend their money. But if you love that artist, do make it your special night out. Go and see them, because it will both give them the encouragement to keep on going, but also financially, it's really needed now more than ever.
100% agree with that, yeah. And you've made me just remember a conversation I had with Mark David from the Music Venue Trust as well, because I think a part of this is the smaller venues as well, the grassroots venues, isn't it? Because, without them, these are the venues that most musicians are playing in. They're not playing in the arenas, So I think more and more artists, like 99%, I would say, are probably playing in the sort of venues that are also being affected by this. Because, as you said earlier, Leon, the live circuit has taken a massive shock as well since COVID. So I think another thing people can do is start going to local shows. It's cheaper for a start, and hell knows we all need that right now. And you're directly supporting, the breeding ground that is enabling many musicians to get out and actually do their thing. So get out to a show, buy some merch, shout about it on social media, just basically get involved. And it's a lot more fun that way to be directly involved in the artist rather than watching them from row 153, at the arena, I think. Maybe I'm biased.
There's nothing beats a live performance, and MVT do a great job of championing, grassroots venues. And with the costs at the moment, it is tough. So support your local venue. I remember when I grew up in Liverpool, and one of my most greatest memories of my sort of teenage years was going out to gigs, in the centre of the city, and nothing can beat it. So, if you can, do go out and support your favourite artists.
100%. And before I come on to the amazing work, I mean, you've mentioned some of the great things that you guys do already, but I want to round up by just giving it to everybody in one go so they know what it is you guys do and that there is hope out there and there is help out there. Before we do that, I want to ask you, are you hopeful that the future is going to get better? Are you still seeing major obstacles and resistance or roadblocks ahead, or are you hopeful that this is going to get better?
I am hopeful, and I'm hopeful because, as I was just saying, music is hugely valuable in our society, and I think I wish the government would do more to support it. I think, particularly issues around Brexit might start to have some sort of resolution. But music has been part of our society and part of our DNA as a country for so many years that I am hopeful. I think it's going to continue to be tough for a year or so at least. But I do think it will hopefully get better over the coming years. And one of the things I've seen actually in terms of the music industry following the pandemic is organisations collaborate more and come together. And I think that's been one of the positive steps from the pandemic, that more organisations that have voices or can do things to influence change are coming together to pool their voices and influence to make a difference.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I definitely think that the conversation is a lot less taboo now. It's a lot more commonplace to have these types of conversations. And I think that is exactly what you just described. And I think help musicians are a massive part of that. I mean, you guys have been in the game a long time. You have a very broad range of interests and services that you guys cover. I get a lot of hope from that as well. I mean, just to know that all those years that I struggled when I was unaware of you guys, struggled, financially and emotionally, and went through some really dark times, carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders, or so I thought. I could have just reached out to you guys, and it's so great now to know that the bands that are starting out now, in this very unpredictable and volatile environment that they're coming into, have got such a great friend in help musicians. So I'd like to shine a light now on some of the things, just to remind people, because you've mentioned some of it already, but just to sort of encapsulate what it is you guys do and what people can get, when they come to you guys for help. What are some of the areas and the main sort of services that you guys operate within?
So we offer a number of different things depending on where you are with your career. So from a health side of things, we offer a hearing health service, which gives custom fitted attenuators to musicians at significantly discounted costs. So if you haven't sorted out decent hearing protection, do look that up and do something around that. On the career development side, we offer record and release funding. We offer skills and professional development support with up to £1,500 there to enhance skills or artistic practice. We also offer support in terms of touring and live. And on the wellbeing side, there are lots of resources to support musicians to look after their mental health through our Music Minds Matter website. So there's a huge range there of things, whether you're wanting to invest in your career, look after your wellbeing, or invest in better mental health.
Well, can you tell us a bit more about Music Minds Matter in particular? Because obviously mental health is a serious problem in our industry right now. So it'd be good to let people know more about that. It's a 24/7 helpline, is that right?
That's right. So for anyone working in the music industry, we have a 24/7 helpline where you get to speak to a trained counsellor. And we also offer a website called Music Minds Matter Explore, with lots of videos on it around particular issues that you can learn more about, whether that's stress or anxiety or well-being. So that's worth a look as well in terms of learning more about both how to protect your mental health, but if you're feeling a certain way and you want to learn more about how others have dealt with that, then that's a great resource also.
Oh, that's so cool, man. Yeah, it's so invaluable and so important that we've got this ally on our side and this friend on our side, as we navigate these new uncertain and uncharted terrains, And I notice as well that you do release funding for certain things now and again. What's the situation with that? Is that an ongoing thing, or is that a sort of like a seasonal thing, or how does that work?
So we opened a winter support fund last year for musicians that we knew were going to really struggle due to the rising costs. And through that scheme, we've paid out about £400,000 now. So for musicians who are really struggling financially, that support is available. So ring our musicians engagement team, and they can talk you through what might be available to you given your financial situation. But also, if you're somebody that's nursing a kind of a career injury or worried about something like RSI, do give us a ring, and we can talk about how we might help you look after your physical well-being as well. So there's both financial support in terms of crisis, but also financial support for career development too.
Oh, that's absolutely brilliant, man. I mean, do you feel the warm sense of reward in the work that you do as well? Or are you like many other people that I've asked that question to in this podcast who do similar great work in other fields where they're more focused on, what's yet to be done?
I think, look, when we hear from musicians that we've made a difference, that boosts the whole team. It really does. We employ people that care passionately about music and are working for the charity because they want to make a difference. So of course we are, we're pleased when we feel that we've made a positive impact to somebody. We're also a team that's always thinking, though, right, what do we need to do next? So, we have a vision to create a world where musicians thrive. So it's not just about supporting musicians in times of crisis. It's about ensuring musicians across the UK can really have a successful and sustainable career. And given what we've talked about earlier, there's definitely a lot more to do on that. So we are thinking about, what we can do in the next 5 years to make more of a difference.
Brilliant. Well, thank God we've got you. It's so reassuring and so important that we've got you on our side. And it's one of the cliches of our industry, unfortunately, that it's only ever the artists, who get all the applause and appreciation. So, whilst the poor roadies are lugging all the equipment, behind the scenes. Yeah. So on behalf of all of us musicians and the wonderful dysfunctional community that I'm a part of, I'd like to extend those thanks and that applause to yourself and everyone involved to help musicians, for being there for us and for everything that you guys do. So thank you.
Thanks, James. That's really appreciated. Can I also say thank you to you because, talking about those challenges, talking about some of the issues that, are challenges is really important too. And it encourages others to keep going. So, thanks to you also for shining a spotlight on those issues. It really does help, I think.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I totally agree with you. I think it's healthy, especially, unfortunately, for men still. There's still this kind of outdated idea that men aren't allowed to talk about these things. I think it's just put it out there, man, because it's good to talk and it's good for everyone involved. And little by little, the more people talk openly about these things, the better we can make things change. And especially for people in positions of success, to be open and honest about their struggles and their journey, I think is helpful because it helps those artists coming up behind them to know that it's not just them and they can learn then from the mistakes of those that went before them. We are a community and we've got to help each other out, man.
Exactly. Completely agree. Couldn't have said it better.
So how can we help you guys then? Because you said that you are a charity. So I'm assuming then that you stay afloat on public donations. How can people actually help and support you guys?
We are a charity and we do rely on public donations. Music Minds Matter this year will cost 1.3 million. That's a record spend. And, that's something at that level we can't continue to spend indefinitely. So if you are in a position to support the charity, we'd love to hear from you, whether that's in terms of money or advocacy for what we do or helping spread the word. Do look at our website and see how you could potentially support in terms of time or advocacy or in any way. That's hugely appreciated.
Brilliant. Yeah. Well, I'm sure you're going to get a lot of love because one thing that we can, I think, always rely upon in our industry, no matter how hard it gets, is everybody loves music. That's not going to go away. So, if you want to keep musicians afloat, then you've got to not just help and support them directly in the ways that Sarah mentioned earlier, but also, you've got to help and help musicians because, we need those guys more than ever right now. So if you can spare a few shekels, I know everybody's struggling right now, then please do donate and help these guys who are doing such great work to support my community. So please go on the website and check that out. I'm assuming they can donate there. And speaking of the website and links, where can people find you?
So we are Help Musicians. Type that into Google and we'll come up. And everything that we offer in terms of our range of support and the ability to donate is all through that website. So do go and have a look. And if you've got some questions when you've looked at the website, do ring our musicians engagement team. That team is available throughout the day, ready to talk to people about where they are within their career and what we can offer to support. So do pick up the phone. Often it's difficult with a website to get a clear sense of whether, in terms of eligibility or what's the right fit for you. So do give the team a call, and they're there to help.
100%. And the website is helpmusicians.org.uk. You're all over social media as well. It's Help Musicians UK on Facebook and Help Musicians on Twitter and Instagram. So there's no excuse. They're everywhere. Get in touch. Do check them out. The website is amazing. There's so much stuff on there. If you're a musician and you feel like you're overwhelmed or you're in a corner, you're not. You're not on your own. These guys are there to help and support you. So please check out the website at helpmusicians.org.uk. And if you're in any position at all to support these guys directly, then please also go to the website and make a small donation if you can afford to do so to help them continue with their amazing, amazing work. Sarah, thanks so much for joining us today. I really appreciate you taking time away from your busy and awesome work to speak today. It's been fascinating.
Thanks, James. It's been a pleasure and a privilege. It's been lovely to talk to you, and thanks so much.
Anytime. You're welcome anytime. And hopefully we'll see you again soon. So thanks so much for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your weekend. I hope you're getting some time away from the busy work, and hopefully we'll see you at a show sometime soon.
That'd be great. Thanks, James.
Thanks, Sarah. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
There you go, guys. What do you think of that? Interesting stuff, right? I mean, I thought when she mentioned that this goes right back to the 30s and that it was exactly the same then, that was a bit of a mind blow for me, because I assumed that it would just be way worse now. So yeah, that was really interesting. I hope you also enjoyed the conversation. I know I did. If you are a musician and you're not currently getting any assistance from Help Musicians, please do check out their website. There's no point suffering in silence. We've got stuff available now that we didn't have back in the day, so take advantage of it. Their website is helpmusicians.org.uk. They're on Facebook at Help Musicians UK and Twitter and Instagram at Help Musicians. Check out their website. If you need to call anybody, they've got the Music Minds Matter helpline there as well. If you're struggling with your mental health, they can give you financial advice, career advice. It's such an awesome tool to have access to. Definitely, please take advantage of it. There's a lot of people working very hard to make it happen. So, it's there for you to take advantage of. So go and do it. And as I said, if you are able to support the work of the charity, please do donate. Every little really does help. And if you're a music fan, hopefully these conversations just give you more of an insight into the sort of, the realities and the struggles that, your favorite artists may be going through, that your favorite artists probably are going through. Because as I said, this goes right to the top of the food chain, So I'm not trying to take any of the glamour or the shine away from, the entertainment value of it, of what we do. But, there are people behind that as well who need the same support and structure that everyone else does. And our industry does seem to be disproportionately affected by these issues. So I think the more people are aware of it and the more artists to speak openly about it, we can start to repair some of the reasons why that happens. So I hope you enjoyed the conversation. And if you haven't yet subscribed to the podcast, please do so right now. Give me a star rating, give me a like, give me a share, do whatever you can to do your part to help me with this podcast. And I'm going to clock out now because, like I said, I am struggling a little bit with PTSD at the moment, which means that my stamina is not what it once was. So I'm going to clock out, but I will be back next week with a brand new episode with another fantastically awesome guest and another issue to delve into. So thanks for all your support. Thanks for listening. Get involved, and I'll see you next time.